Hello. My name is Megan Milinovich, and welcome to the Megan Millen podcast. That is not the official podcast name. I have just not set or determined what the name is yet, but hey, if Joe Rogan can name a podcast after himself, so can I. And you know, the source-aligned way of doing things sometimes is to do it before things are 100% perfect, before you are 100% ready. So here we are just putting ourselves out there. I am so happy to be doing this though. This is very, way overdue. And I want this first episode just to be about me deep diving into my childhood, growing up, and really just how I got into this work. And when I say this work, how I became an intuitive, how I became spiritual, things like that. I grew up in Chicago. Until I was 12 years old, and then at that point we moved to a southwest suburb of Chicago. Currently I live in Phoenix. I'll go into how I ended up in Phoenix, but back to my childhood. I grew up what I would say normal. I have zero negative connotation about that because I loved the way I grew up. I'm the second of 4 kids. It goes boy, girl. I have 2 amazing parents and grew up in Chicago. My parents are born and raised there. And growing up, we went to Catholic school, played sports. I had aunts and uncles that lived right around the block from me. I grew up with a very close, loving, and supportive family. And what's funny about growing up, going to a Catholic school, I have very early childhood memories of me thinking, this is brainwashing, this meaning Catholic school. It was very, in my mind, and when I say early memories, I mean first grade, thinking this is brainwashing. Everything was so strict. And right when you're a kid, it just seems so boring too. Like, I liked the music, which is so funny, right? Church has some bangers, but like the teachings and everything seem so strict. And now being in this work, it makes sense why I think that. I'll go into that a little bit later. But something I wanted to touch on now because I feel like that's really monumental in how I grew up and how I thought spirituality was, what I thought God was, you know, things like that. And then yes, once I was 12, we moved from Chicago. I didn't grow up in downtown Chicago. I grew up by Midway Airport, but the neighborhood just wasn't becoming the greatest. So it was time to move, especially because at that time I was 12. My sister was 7. I believe she was in first grade. Sorry, she was really young and the neighborhood was just changing. So we moved to a southwest suburb and just talk about what a whirlwind change that was, moving from a city to a smaller suburb, and talk about what a change moving from a city to a smaller suburb where kids were going to school with each other. I mean, since they were in first or second grade and I'm coming in middle school, such a changing, developmental, pivotal time, especially in a girl/teenager's life. And I wouldn't say it was hard. I don't want to be like pity me because again, I had such a loving and amazing supportive family. I was good at school. I played sports. Thank God I played sports because that helped me make friends and helped me belong to a community. But right, it is challenging going from a Catholic school where you're wearing uniforms and you don't really care about what your hair and you're not wearing makeup to literally a middle school where girls are wearing Abercrombie, getting highlights, wearing makeup, like very jarring, nearly night and day. But you know, my whole life, I'm a pivoter. Like I just adapt and find the way to make it work for me. And I have a lot of that to thank to my parents because even, guys, I have very young memories of, again, I played volleyball primarily, but I would do dance classes or things like that. And my mom, I love you, Mom, but my mom would force me. And I was younger because there wasn't, I can't exactly remember, but there wasn't an age level class for my age. So I was younger dancing with older girls. They were more mature than I was, right? Like I had nothing in common with them. So I'm very used to at this point by the time I move to the suburbs of how to adapt and how to make friends. And even if I don't make friends, you know, how to cope with being alone really. But again, I don't want to make that sound like pity me. I literally don't feel sorry in the least bit for me. But right, it was a challenge. I moved in 7th grade, but in 8th grade, there were literally people sneaking in drugs and alcohol into school and doing it during school. That's the very minority of people, but you were never doing that at the Catholic school I went to in Chicago. You know what I mean? I was going to dances now. Like I've never been to a dance before. These people were going into dances from 6th grade and I felt behind in some regards. And my soul signed up for that. So again, I don't feel sorry for myself, but I didn't know that at the time. So making friends and trying to fit in was a challenge. Not saying I didn't have friends, but I had friends from a very, very wide group of people, I guess. So I played volleyball, right? So I had my volleyball friends. I had friends that I was just mainly in classes with. I literally had friends who were kind of the punk emo type of people. And what's funny, I don't dress or act punk or emo. Part of me relates to that because I do have this angry side of me that I don't broadcast outward. But me looking back now, it totally makes sense why I was friends with them. Not saying they're angry people, but you get what I'm saying. And why I mention that is because I have a really vivid memory of just someone at one point I was hanging out with these punk kids who occasionally did weed. And they're like, you are nothing like them, right? Because I would dress kind of what you would call preppy, normal. And to me, I didn't care. But again, that's just what I was in alignment to hear at the time because I wasn't seeing myself for who I really was. So other people weren't seeing myself for who I really was. And without knowing this work, I don't know how you know who you truly are at the age of 13. Middle school was a very, very interesting time, to say the least. It was a lot of adapting, trying to figure out friends, being torn between multiple sides of my personality. Because literally, guys, we're not single-faceted in our life. We have multiple facets or assets. And if you want to go right into spiritual work, there's this universal law of whole of we are everything. And at this time, I was really experiencing this. We are all of everything. I was experiencing this quite literally right in front of my eyes with the different groups of people I would hang out with. But right, I didn't understand that at the time. Society 1000% does not understand that. So if you can imagine a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of physical self-image wounds, a lot of femininity wounds were deepened during this time for me. And again, I want to make it abundantly clear, this is not a sob story. These are things my soul, and if you have similar stories or anything about your story, are things your soul signed up for in this lifetime. So if anything, be thankful for it because it's led you to this moment you're at today. And again, I don't feel sorry for myself. These are things my soul just signed up for, but it's worth noting so that we could see the trajectory of my life and how we got to where we are at today. Okay, so we graduate 8th grade. And again, the suburb that I lived in, these kids, I hate saying these kids, but it sounds so negative, but these kids literally go from school with each other from the time they are in 2nd grade, which is LOL so funny because this is essentially my sister. They go to school with each other from the time they are in 2nd grade, and they go from the elementary school, which is 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, to then the school that's 4th and 5th grade, to then middle school, which is 6th through 8th grade, to then high school. Majority of these people that went to the middle school I went to also went to the same high school as myself. And there's other kids that filter in who maybe were in Catholic school or etc. that go to this high school. But again, I'm painting the picture. It's a very small bubble. And when I look back at high school, again, if you would see me from the outside, you would think this chick plays volleyball, she has friends, what could possibly be wrong? And nothing was wrong, but it's just this internal knowing I don't know where I'm fitting in. Like, I don't know who I fit in with. And right, what do I mean by that? So I go to high school, and right, there are people who are dating, who are even dating seniors. And this is a small bubble high school, who are boy crazy. And at the time, that was not me. And even today, that's not me. But I get to high school, I'm a freshman. And again, this is a small bubble high school. And just cue your emotional and self-image and really physical self-image, actually really any area of life self-image, wounds just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Because if you don't nip it in the bud, you'll just keep creating experiences to amplify that. That's a byproduct of your electromagnetic field. These are all things I will go more in depth in subsequent podcasts, but for the purpose of today, middle school was very monumental to me in development. Again, like any other teenager, but then becoming a freshman, these insecurities I had were just amplified 10 to 1,000-fold, it felt like at times. And what were these insecurities I had? First was my physical form, so I'll say weight. Not saying I was overweight, but there were chicks who were skinnier than I was. So you instantly start comparing yourself to that. I had such a big insecurity around not wearing makeup. My mom, I love you, Mom, but she would not let me wear makeup, and I felt like I was the only chick in the school not wearing makeup. Huge insecurity. And I almost forgot, another huge insecurity of mine was I had braces for 3.5 years, I believe. It's because I had an impacted tooth like here, if you're not watching on the video. I don't want to like deep dive into my teeth, but I had an impacted tooth and I had to wear braces for a long time to guide my tooth down. Anyways, I won't go into the whole orthodontic history of myself, but I got braces in 8th grade. So imagine starting freshman year with braces. It was just like, oh, like I didn't want to smile. And not saying I didn't smile, but it was an insecurity, you know what I mean? And imagine that bleeds into talking and sharing your ideas. And those are some of the things that are the bane of my existence until I started healing my shit. And I would say the last insecurity I had in high school was boys. In middle school and high school, I didn't have boyfriends. I had one guy, I use the term boyfriend loosely. I think we dated for 2 months and maybe we talked for like a few months before that. But in general, did not have boyfriends, would talk to guys, but nothing serious. And again, that is a huge, huge insecurity of mine. When I had all of these chicks around me, getting boyfriends, having sex, receiving the male attention, and when your self-image is so low, you start thinking you need these external things to fill the void to make you feel better. And I wasn't getting that because that's what I perceived would make me feel better. So just amplifying any insecurity I had around boys even more. Something I did love about myself at this time is Yes, I was really good at school, so I invested a lot of time in that. But I loved volleyball, and I don't want to say I invested more time in volleyball than in school, but right, I was good at it. So it's something very memorable for me. But then even within sports, there's girls, there's cliques, there's only about 1,000,005 reflections being thrown in your face as triggers, and you have no idea what to do about it at that age. I loved volleyball, and by my senior year of high school, I hated it. I even considered playing in college for a little bit, but I was so burnt out by coaches, other girls. Again, I'm not trying to play victim. It's just what it is. Other girls, 1000% probably feel the same way. When I say other girls that were on my team interacting with me, etc. But by the time I was 17, 18, I was like, I need to be done. I need a break. I wanted to feel normal. I didn't want to worry about going to practice every night or going to practice 3 nights a week with a tournament on the weekends. It was just, okay, it's time to not be that person anymore. At least that's what I felt like at the time. Another thing that's super memorable for me about high school, and I'm gonna backtrack to even when I was younger. Growing up, I was a quiet kid. My parents would tell me to do something, I would just do it. Would never really backtalk, was a good girl. And I put that in quotations because there's good and bad in everything, but just for the purpose of the story. But as I got into middle school and high school, I definitely got feistier. No one was telling me what to do ever at that age. And that age being middle school through high school. And even throughout my life now, I just manage it a little bit better, but I was a firecracker back in the day. Why was I so fiery? It was so much pent up anger that I didn't even realize I was accumulating from feeling insecure about my body, feeling like I can't speak or create my thoughts or ideas, feeling like I have to hide parts of myself. Boys, you name it, I was angry at it and I had no idea. I'm chuckling. Let me tell you this one story about how my anger or firecrackerness came to fruition. Not came to fruition, but it was showcased. There you go. That's the word, showcased. So I'm a senior in high school and I'm playing on my high school volleyball team. And my senior year of volleyball on my high school team was a very, very, what I'm rolling my eyes right now, what we would say toxic in social media or societal terms, but nothing's toxic. You're creating all of your situations and circumstances around you. But for the purpose of the story, again, my senior year high school volleyball team was toxic. And at the time, and even now, it still feels like that. This is still a little bit of a wound. And at the time, the coach, I don't want to say she would thrive off creating a divide, but she would definitely create a divide amongst girls on the team. She had favorites. If you were a favorite, you were placed in this bucket. If you weren't, you were placed over here. Favorites were typically people that were good, who ass kissed. And I was good, but I don't kiss anyone's. So I was equally a trigger to this coach in that regard. And guys, I keep saying she created, again, my POV at the time, she created this divide amongst our team so much that so much angst built up. This is one of 2 stories that she even had to hold me after practice one time to be like, what is going on? Why are you acting like this? I was crying. It was a whole thing. And guys, if you ever played sports, you know if a coach holds you back after to talk about your attitude, it's not the greatest feeling in the world. It's like something's going on, right? Within the team, but also within myself. But the story I'm getting to is we would play tournaments most weekends. So we are at this tournament and we are playing this good team, and this one girl on my team just keeps getting annihilated on serve receive. This team is only serving to this girl and they're getting aces nonstop. This girl keeps shanking or can't get it, and This was one of the coach's favorites who actually wasn't even really that good, but would suck up to the coach, whose parents would suck up to the coach. My parents didn't suck up to the coach either. So, right, the favorite is not getting substituted out. And on serve receive, I was in back row with her. And you would think, if you've played volleyball before, you know you can rotate her out, you can sub her out, you could just take her out of the serve receive in general. And what does my coach do? She takes me out of the game. And I was like, oh, hell no. I'm doing nothing wrong. Again, guys, I am a firecracker at this age. And I also want to set the scene. There's parents watching along the sidelines. I have my mom there, my dad there, my aunt there, my grandpa there, I think too. So she subs me out and the tension is palpable. My best friend on the team, I can see her just being like, oh, Megan's not happy about this. And what's funny at this tournament, the bench, I don't know why it was abnormally long. Like there were so many chairs on this bench. And guys, I took my warm up in the game. Or once I got off the bench, I grabbed my warm up, put it on, sat at the farthest end of the bench. If you play sports, you know how flippin' big of a deal this is. I'm laughing about this because there was zero emotional regulation by myself at that time. But man, do I admire her for being so ballsy. You know what I mean? And you could just feel the gasp from the sidelines of the parents and even from the girls on the bench. Like, no, Megan did not just almost take herself out of the game too. Just sitting there fuming, and I'm just thinking, try to put me back in. I'm not going back in, and blah, blah, blah. And long story short, she did call my name so loud, Megan, put me back in the game. But guys, such a firecracker with no emotional regulation at that age. There's equally good and bad in that. Me acting out like that is almost a form of a release, you know? But then after that release, it's not like I got all of the anger out of my body and then now what? I still have all this anger. What do I do? And I didn't have the tools to regulate my anger at the time, but you get what I'm saying. But I am wildly grateful for volleyball. It's for sure one of the spots I didn't feel like such an outcast when I did feel like such an outcast in other aspects of high school. Again, with boys, I can't tell you how many times I've third wheeled, fifth wheeled with my friends and their boyfriends and just being like, okay, I'm just the single chick back here. And I give a lot of love to myself during that time. Again, it's all just part of my purpose. At the time, I didn't know that. But imagine just being the chick. And maybe you were the chick too who didn't really get dates to dances. I had a date my junior year to prom. Senior year to prom, I went alone when literally majority of people I went with had dates. So I imagine like your friends are all taking pictures with their dates and you're just standing there like, hey. And you know what's funny? I say it like that because yes, while it was awkward, there were little parts of me telling me, who gives a F? You get to go out there and have fun. You're not going to prom with the deadbeat date. You're not going to prom having to spend your time with someone you don't even really like. And I really, again, admire myself for having those thoughts because those are little things I would cling to that were my true inner knowing, even despite everyone around me thinking it's flippin' weird that I went to prom without a date. Like, I even remember when my family members saying when we were taking pictures for prom, Meg, you didn't tell me you were one of the only ones without a date. Like, it was a bad thing. And I didn't think twice of it because I'm like, who cares? I'm still just dressing up and going to prom and I'm going to dance and I'm going to eat good food and then I'm going to the prom after party. You know what I mean? But by society standards, that's weird. So right, even cue that little memory, digging further in and deeper into that emotional wound of not feeling like I'm good enough, essentially. Of digging into the emotional wound that the external validation is what, and not the external validation, but that the external things are what make you special, not just you feeling inherently special on your own. Needless to say, once high school was over, I was ready to leave. I pretty much knew I wasn't going to go to school in Illinois. Ever since middle school, I wanted to leave Illinois. And it's around that time where Laguna Beach was airing on MTV. And I always thought, I'm going to go to California. It's so nice there. It's the waters. I always thought it's so nice there. The ocean, the sun. And right, it's so romanticized on TV too, especially with a show like Laguna Beach. So right, from middle school on, I pretty much knew I wasn't going to live in Illinois. I applied to Illinois schools, literally knew I wasn't going to go to one of them. Did it out of formality, just in case. And just in case maybe I was feeling homesick and wanted to stay close to home. I know it's funny, even during that time, even after hating volleyball, I was still toying with, oh, do I actually go play at a, D3 or D2 school? And that ended up being a no. But yeah, talk about at the age of 18, you having to make really, really big life decisions based on society's timelines without having the tools to do so, without having any tools to do so. Again, different topic for a different day. And also at 18 is where I decided I was going to be a physical therapist. Talk about another major life decision. At the age of 18, I did not know my soul gifts. I did not know I was intuitive. And you're making life-changing decisions about school and majors, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to talk bad on that either, because I loved going to college. I'm going to deep dive into college too. And I loved that I became a physical therapist. But just knowing what I know now about my soul plan, and even just nowadays, college feels so different than like when I went to school. It's just not things I would have done. I would not have gone to college knowing this was my path, this being intuition. Okay, but let's backtrack. We are applying to schools, and one that really caught my eye was the University of Iowa. The second I walked on campus, it just felt like magic. And I just had such a good feeling about going there. It almost felt like a mini Chicago, because nearly half of the University of Iowa's enrollment is Illinois students. And that's just because Illinois is so corrupt and it's not cheap to go to college in state. So it felt like a mini Chicago without actually being in Illinois. Such a cool little city, such a cool college town. But it's a lot of money, and I had people in my ear, friends, family members, parents of friends, always talking about the cost of school and tuition. And guys, 97% of our thoughts are not even our own. So these thoughts I'm taking on from other people, and I'm now making them my own. And I have all of this doubt about going to the University of Iowa. So instead, my freshman year of college, I went to Western Michigan University. I visited the school. I liked it. It was cheaper. I got a little bit of a scholarship, and I was almost praised, I would say, and not praised by everyone, but certain people in my life praised and amplified the fact of, this is a good decision going to Western Michigan University. It's cheaper, blah, blah, blah. And guys, it is the first very, very vivid memory of mine of me not listening to my intuition. I don't want to say I regret it. Regret meaning going to Western Michigan University, but it is even something I think about today of, God, Meg, you should have just listened to yourself. I am equally grateful for that moment, because I went to Western Michigan University. I flippin' hated it. I would go home most weekends. I made 2 really, really good friends out of the experience, though. That was a saving grace. But I hated my freshman year of college, essentially. I had fun. I don't want to make it sound like it was so miserable. I literally have so many funny memories and times during that era. But man, did I hate the school I went to. And I'm equally grateful for it, because I made a promise to myself, I am never listening to anyone again when it comes to major life decisions, like where I'm moving to, where I'm going to school. And after that, I never did. I followed my own path. I followed my own, I wouldn't call it intuition at the time, but it was. I followed my own intuition moving forward on where to go to school, where to move to, and never let anyone else influence my decision in that regard. So again, as much as I hated it, it was equally a blessing. Like, I remember my final exam freshman year, because I was transferring to Iowa. So I applied to Iowa then, and sophomore year I transferred to the University of Iowa. I remember walking out of my final, and the biggest weight being lifted off my shoulders, the biggest pressure in my chest being released, because that is how much anxiety it gave me being at that school. And even, I don't want to say regret, but just filled with so much maybe resentment or feeling out of control of the situation that was rectified, it felt like to me in that moment, or maybe was released at that moment. But right, I'm thankful for it. When it came down to major life decisions, I was never listening to anyone else again. But I'm also thankful for it because it showed me how much grit and resilience mentally I have to literally stay at a school, live at a school that you flippin' hate so much, that gives you so much anxiety. And I did that for a year. Guys, that is not easy. And at that moment in time, that was not only solidifying to myself, but putting into my creator field or your electromagnetic field. My grit and my mental tenacity is second to no one, is unparalleled. And today I'm thankful for it. So after freshman year, moved home, went to the University of Iowa my sophomore year, lived in a single dorm room because I wasn't about to share a dorm room with a roommate again. I had a bad experience with my roommate my freshman year too. So I was like, we're not doing that again, but I wasn't going to live in an apartment off campus, you know what I mean? And man, at the University of Iowa, did I have the time of my life. It is such a bittersweet era for me. Why I say bittersweet? Because it almost feels like there were two things happening at the same time. Two paths that I don't say were parallel to each other, but maybe veering in different directions is a better way to put it. On one path, I was moving farther and farther away from my soul's purpose, which is this, which is intuition, which is self-image and energetic healing. Right? Because I was going to school, I was becoming a physical therapist, which is beneficial for what I do today. I don't want to discredit the knowledge I learned from that, but right, I don't and I didn't need college to do what I'm doing today. And on the other path, I felt like I was becoming more and more like myself. I was putting myself out there more, talking to guys more, having so much fun, going to parties. Like my personality came out in such full effect, and I love and am so obsessed with that version of me. But I also look back and I just see, wow, that is a chick who is getting further and further away from seeing who she truly is. Does that make sense? Two things were really happening at the same time. I felt more like myself and more alive than ever, but at the same time, I wasn't really seeing myself for who I really was. It sounds like an oxymoron, but in college, essentially, I was just letting it rip, just being who I wanted to be, which was huge for me, while also doing things at the same time that weren't on my higher self path. But anyways, I loved college. I balled out at school, stepped into this really, really fun version of myself, had such a community at the University of Iowa, meaning I loved my group of friends so much. I don't talk to them today. It's funny, if I saw one of them today, I feel like I would just give them the biggest hug and we would just laugh because we had such a good group of friends and I felt like I belonged. Like I had a group of friends I felt like I belonged to, which is different than what I had the previous 6 years of my life in middle school and high school. In middle school and high school, again, I had a group of friends, but I didn't really feel like I belonged with them. I felt like I was being pulled in different directions. I feel like I didn't relate to them while also simultaneously relating to them. Two things can be true, right? But in college, no, I had this unwavering knowing of I have such a solid group of friends who I laugh with, who are fun. We do things together. Had the time of my life while also doing really well in school because, right, I was applying to become a physical therapist. When I say I was applying to become one, you have to apply to grad school. So during my senior year of college, I applied to physical therapy schools. And the two schools that stick out to me that I got into that I'm going to brag about myself for a little bit here are Washington University in St. Louis and the University of Iowa. Both are top 5 schools, meaning they're ranked top 5 in the nation. The University of Iowa only accepts 30 students maybe, and majority of them live in state, and I lived out of state, right? And it's a competitive program. So I got into that and I got into Washington University in St. Louis, which was ranked, and I believe is still ranked, the #1 doctor of physical therapy program in the country. What a flex. And I say that with so much pride because so many years I would talk shit about that, meaning the rankings don't matter, blah, 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 because that's what the external narrative is in that community meaning physical therapists in general. I love physical therapists, but that is the narrative. Oh, why'd you go to Washington University in St. Louis? Because it's ranked #1. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. You have to pay so much in tuition. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. No one cares. No one knows what school you're going to in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Like, no one cares what state school you're going to that's not even on my radar or on a map. And obviously that is still a trigger for me a little bit. For so many years, I would not talk down on, but take on other people's opinions on the cost of tuition associated with going to WashU. And people would mock it because they would say, you only went there because it's ranked 1 in the country, the rankings don't matter, blah, blah, blah. Well, where are you at on the list? So I graduated senior of college. It was very, very hard for me to turn down going to the University of Iowa for physical therapy school, but I had such a perfect memory of my undergrad experience of Iowa that grad school would be different. I was in a doctorate program. I have my doctorate in physical therapy. It would be very, very different. It'd be a smaller community, and I could just tell my pool was to go somewhere new. So I went to Washington University in St. Louis. I actually loved living in St. Louis. The campus is in Central West End, which is beautiful, fun, so much to do. It's by Forest Park, which is, I don't want to say it's 3 times bigger than Central Park, but it's this huge, beautiful, amazing park. And I loved it. Obviously, the school part is a grind. I mean, you go to school most of your day and then you come home and study. It is a grind. Again, though, with that grind, I'm inserting, I have mental toughness into my own psyche, but also into my electromagnetic field. Like, guys, I would go to cadaver lab for 3 hours, I don't know, and then I would come home and study more anatomy. It is a grind. And similar to college, the first, I'll say, half or 2/3 of my experience in physical therapy school, I felt like I was becoming more of who I truly am, but in reality, I wasn't. And I say that because in college and then even in PT school, in hindsight, I was getting a lot of physical reflections that were essentially telling me what you're doing is actually not on your highest timeline. It is not on your higher self path. So in college, physical reflections where I actually started getting really bad scabs on my scalp, where if you took off the scab, chunks of hair would come out. Not like I was balding or anything, but that is a physical reflection of you not listening to your intuition. And in grad school, I remember getting really bad left knee pain, and that was associated with my purpose. That was a physical reflection of showing where I was out of balance with my soul's purpose. I was getting shoulder tension, the craziest shoulder tension. Guys, these are all just physical reflections showing me where I'm out of alignment with my true nature self. While simultaneously my human brain, human me, was thinking, no, I'm thriving. But in my 3rd year of PT school, something changed. What's funny is my hair is already fine, but my hair was getting finer. I was keeping on more weight. In college, I lost weight. Again, not like I was overweight, but in college, I lost weight. I won't say I was the healthiest eater, exerciser, etc., but for the purpose of the story, in college, I lost weight. In 3rd year of grad school, I gained it back. And why all this is happening is because you graduate PT school after 3 years, and during that 3rd year, it was becoming more real of, okay, you're not just going to school forever. Now you are stepping into real life. And you are stepping into real life in a career that is not your soul's purpose. So a lot of reflections were popping up then, especially physically, because that is what I was paying closest attention to at the time, of just sending me signals. You are not aligning with your purpose right now. But your higher selves are smart. They know that you will face these obstacles and challenges in your lifetime to overcome them, to help others overcome the same thing. So it's not even like I'm mad that I went to college or PT school. Again, I loved my experience in college and PT school. I met the most incredible and smartest people, the most fun people. I have zero regret about it. But also when I think back at that time, I see myself struggling physically, mentally, with trying to keep my head afloat with grad school and life and real life pressure things coming on. And it was a little bit of a mind game, right? You graduate school, you just spent and invested time and money for the past 7 years of your life to then graduate. And if I'm being honest with myself at that time, not feeling completely fulfilled in that career. I remember graduating and taking my first job and being in my first job and not liking it. And that is a big piece of humble pie to know you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, so much time and energy to not feel fulfilled in the thing you thought you would feel fulfilled in. While in PT school, though, you do clinicals, and you do 4 of them. Specifically at the school I went to, you do 4 of them. And my clinicals were in Chicago, Phoenix, Long Island, New York, and Dallas. And just talk about everything in your life, setting you up for your purpose and monumental decisions in your life. What do I mean by that? I didn't know it at the time, but I would be moving to Phoenix, and I, with intuition, see eventually I will move to Texas. And what's funny is these clinicals were planting seeds for that. So getting ready to graduate from PT school, I know I'm not moving back to Illinois. I've known that for a very long time. Again, as early as middle school, I'm not living in Illinois. What better time to move out of state than taking a job with the company you did a clinical with? And I was actually torn at this time. And when I'm graduating PT school, just for reference, I'm 22 years old. I'm making the decision, do I want to move to Scottsdale or Dallas? And I was actually torn. I was leaning more towards Scottsdale always, but I was torn between the two. And it makes sense why I was torn between the two, because my soul had a desire to live in both places. I shouldn't say had a desire, still has that desire, but I graduate school, I accept a job, move to Scottsdale, move I don't know, 1,400, 1,800 miles away from home. I know people in Scottsdale and Phoenix, but I was essentially moving by myself. I actually had one of my best friends who I would never in a million years expect to move to Phoenix, move here. So I've always had a person, but essentially I moved out here alone, and I currently live in Phoenix. I've been here again for 8.5 years, if I didn't say that already. But the first place I lived in Arizona was Old Town Scottsdale. If you're not familiar with it, it is so much fun, such a vibe. Bars, restaurants, things to do. Such a vibrant energy. What's funny is during this time, I don't lose weight. I'm just maintaining the weight I'm at. My hair is still thinner, I'll say. And just all of these reflections of not feeling good enough and not recognizing myself for who I truly am are being amplified. And it's because I'm moving further and further away from my purpose. The further you move away from your purpose, the louder reflections will get. And where are they being amplified in? Friends, socially, dating, I should say, physical. In my job, I wasn't happy in my job. I mean, I liked the people I worked with, thankfully, but I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. I can imagine you're living out here alone, which is fine by me. I do thrive alone, and I'm used to doing things alone. I thrive with companionship, friends, etc. also, but being alone, I was fine. But imagine you're living in Scottsdale alone, you're starting a new job, and you're thinking, God, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life? Like, that realization was hitting hard. Wow, is this what I'm doing for the rest of my life? And cue just so much anxiety and panic over that. And with that anxiety, lack of trust, panic feeling, and not knowing how to deal with it, comes me seeking external validation from anyone and anything. I mean, right, that could be drinking to feel confident. I mean, I did that in college too, but talking to guys that don't really light you up just to get external validation, acting and speaking and being a type of way because that's what you see other people doing and they're getting attention doing that. So flash forward, I want to say, I know what I misspoke earlier. When you graduate PT school, you're 25, not 22. You're 22 when you graduate college. So that is a big clarification. So fast forward, I'll say 2 years into me living in Arizona, and I start dating a guy. And to give you the tea on how we met, he was actually one of my patients. And we didn't date while I was treating him. We dated after the fact. And when we first started dating, I mean, he made me feel like gold. He made me feel like a princess. So funny. We had the best time with each other. I am wildly thankful for the relationship because, well, in general, it just catapulted me to be where I'm at today. But we started dating right before COVID, and I didn't have family out here. So he was my COVID person. If I didn't have him, I would be in my apartment actually alone, and who even knows what my mental psyche would be like, right? And you know, it's good at first, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. But I'm not going to leave him because I have such deep emotional wounds at this point of not feeling like I'm special enough, of not feeling like I'm good enough, of feeling like I need external validation to feel loved, worthy, insert whatever. I thought I needed the external thing to feel good about myself, essentially. And I haven't had that in a very long time, so I wasn't going to leave him. You know what I mean? Even though I knew he's not my person, even though I knew our relationship wasn't great, even though I knew our relationship wasn't even good. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying he was a bad guy, but like, no, he's not my person. But I'm staying in the relationship, going through the motions, and on the 4th of July in 2021, I don't know what it was. I had this mental breakdown. I think because I was really having a moment of being like, he's not my person. Where do you see us going? Et cetera, et cetera. We make up, but a week or a little over a week later, he breaks up with me. And guys, let me paint the picture. I live in my own apartment. I have my doctorate degree. I make money. And this dude was a loser. This is what I thought about myself at the time. He had some low income, minimum wage job, lived with his mom still. And I just thought that was okay. Like, no. The dude was a loser. And I had the biggest wake up call when he dumped me. I'm like, how does this dude dump me? I am way out of his league. I am beyond his league, and he dumped me. He dumped me because I wasn't going to dump him. You know what I mean? Because I was clinging to the external validation. And at that moment, I wouldn't say that's what started my spiritual journey or even a self-help journey. It started a what the is going on journey. What is going on and how am I creating this life of mine? At this point, I'm at a low. I just got dumped. It seems like everyone else around me is getting boyfriends, getting married, making money, happy in their career, and I can't confidently say that I have or feel any of those things. Feel like I could have the career, feel like I could have the money, feel like I could have my dream desired romantic relationship. So I do what anyone else does at the time. I go to social media, right? TikTok, podcasts, self-help books to see what are these people doing that have these things I desire so that I can then do those things and get the things I desire, get the same things they have. What I didn't know at the time is I am a high frequency soul. If this resonates with you, you are most likely also a high frequency soul. And the things that work for everyone else on social media and the self-help books, whatever, don't work for me. I've graduated from these easy levels of attracting the things I desire. And now I need the source channeled in a aligned way to get the money, to get the clients, to get the dream relationship, etc. So I was 29 years old when I was starting this journey of mine of figuring out what's going on. And as I'm on this journey, some things are helping. And when I say helping, it's a temporary high, almost like a band-aid to the solution. But guys, over years, I was starting to feel worse. The meditations were making me feel worse. The affirmations weren't working. The manifestation letters and journal prompts were doing nothing for me. Guys, I'm not kidding when I say I felt worse. I bought this one meditation app and almost instantly, I shouldn't say instantly, but within a short time frame after buying it and listening to it, I was feeling so much worse about myself. Literally the worst pressure in my chest, the worst jaw pain. And I'm thinking, how is this happening? How am I feeling worse when these things are helping all of these other people that seem like they're helping the entire world and they're not helping me? I do not get it. I cannot fathom it. And if you can imagine when you are trying all these things and they are not working for you, resistance starts to build. I was already a resistant, stubborn person. This was amplifying it times 100. And I'm thinking, I'm not listening to anyone else anymore. I'm sick of trying these tips and tricks. They're such bullshit. And flash forward to me being 32 years old, still on this journey, but again, resistant and apprehensive to take advice from anyone else. And my best friend who lives out here, she told me, you need to follow this one manifestation account. I instantly rejected it. I hate being told what to do. Second of all, I'm super resistant to everything that I don't discover on my own at this point. So she tells me the first time, follow this account. I don't. 2 weeks later, she tells me again, no, you need to follow this account. It's great. Flash forward, I do follow this account. And it was giving me glimmers of hope, I'll say, because the things this manifestation account were telling me, and the account is Manifestation Babe, if you've never heard of it. But she was saying things that were finally starting to resonate and work a little bit for me. So I'm like, finally, something's working. And from Manifestation Babe, I find my first mentor in the space, Allie Ninfo. Literally, she was talking about energetic boob jobs on Manifestation Babe's podcast, and I couldn't tell you why, but it just made sense to me. Right? That sounds so crazy, an energetic boob job, but I was like, no, that makes sense. I go to her page. She's a normal chick, right? Because you're imagining people in these spiritual spaces as being frumpy or woo-woo out there, you know what I mean? And she wasn't. And I'm listening to her work and she's saying, you know, there's energetic root causes to this, and this. And at the time, I paid really, really close attention to physical self-image. And Allie talks a lot about self-image. And getting into her work is what made me feel comfortable not getting the Botox anymore, getting rid of my hair extensions. Because guys, I was getting the hair extensions and Botox from a external validation place. I lived in Old Town Scottsdale. Everyone has hair extensions and Botox. I thought, okay, that's what I need to do too, to get the guy, to get the followers, to get the XYZ. No, newsflash, no. I was doing it from an emotionally wounded, imbalanced place. The Botox and hair extensions were making my life worse because you cannot solve your internal wounds with Botox, period. So I take Allie's self-image course. I see lights at the end of the tunnel. When I say I see lights at the end of the tunnel, I just feel like I'm within the information I need to attract the life I desire. I have the high frequency information I need to begin living my life, to begin healing, to begin feeling good about myself. So I take her self-image course. And within the course, she advertises within her business that one of her intuitive friends, Nikki, is doing one-on-one private readings regarding the romantic relationship area of life. And if I had to backtrack a little bit, in between the time my boyfriend broke up with me and joining Allie's initial course, I had this pool to post online. It was influencer type stuff. I initially started posting about food food, places I was visiting. It was gradually turning into a lifestyle influencer account. And I thought that's what I was pulled to do in my life was to influence. And I was following the correct pull to post on social media because that is what I do today in my business. I should say that is a part of what I do today in my business. It's just not to be an influencer. So Allie's advertising, Nikki's doing romantic relationship reads, and I followed the pull to go sign up with him. And this was November 18th. It's funny how I remember the day. I remember the day because it was a big day for me, and catapulted me even further onto my soul path. But it was November 18th. This is so corny. I remember the exact date. Okay, it was November 18th, 2024. And you have 8 areas of your life. And I was signing up for a romantic relationship read, but all areas of life affect each other. And one of my biggest blocks that we were talking about was my purpose, was my vocation. And he tells me, do you know you're really intuitive? And guys, I didn't. But when he told me that, it's not like I went into this denial or had this like gut wrenching or I'm like, that my throat fell into my stomach type of feeling. I didn't know I was intuitive, but I had such a neutral feeling about what he was saying. And that is your intuition. Your neutral knowing is your intuition. So he's telling me, do you know you're really intuitive? And I'm thinking, I didn't know that, but that makes sense. I'm so thankful I followed that pull to go get a reading from him because Nikki is my mentor today. After this one-on-one, I start training my intuition a little bit and sign up for a full-blown intuition course last January, a year ago. And guys, from there is really where I just took the ball running, training my intuition, healing my self-image. I had finally found the source-aligned, high-frequency information that resonated with me, that would help me heal and get the things I desire. So ever since Allie's initial self-image course, ever since I've started working with Nikki, I've just been expanding my intuition more and more, healing my self-image more and more. My intuition is the best it's ever been. My self-image is the highest it's ever been. And guys, as you reach new levels of training your intuition and healing your self-image, you just keep graduating and going up and up and up. There's always more levels to achieve on earth. So that's why I say my intuition and my self-image is the highest or best it's ever been. And through this process and journey, I have discovered my purpose. This intuition, and I should say intuition, self-image, and energetic healing. I started my intuitive business officially in October. I'm starting my podcast today, and it's been a whirlwind, but in the best way possible. And I don't want to say it hasn't been challenging aligning with my purpose, but is it the most fulfilling? 100%. I am way more fulfilled in the grit, grind, and hard work of healing my emotional wounds than I have been with anything else, than I have been with getting the Botox, getting the extensions, dating the loser guy. Aligning with my purpose has given me clarity that I didn't even realize was possible. And which is why it's my mission now to help others discover who they truly are, to stop listening to the noise, as I call it, to stop seeking external validation, and to start feeling special, unique, and valuable within themselves. Aligning with who you truly are will make you the happiest, period. Stop listening to the external noise, stop seeking external validation, and start internally validating themselves, because that is the only way you'll be the happiest and most fulfilled in this lifetime. And to end this, I can't thank you enough for listening and being here today, and I'll see you next time.